Okay, in this video we're going to start doing the tear down. First we're going to start with removing the fan shroud and fan and radiator and getting them out so they're safe and don't get damaged, because I need to put a water pump in this. Plus it's not always that bad of an idea to remove your radiator and put it in last so it doesn't get damaged while you're working on it and doing different things. So we'll start with taking the fan loose and gently setting it inside, and then we'll take the top of the shroud off so we can get the fan out. Just 4 half-inch nuts in there to take off the half-inch range. Making sure not to lose them, I guess. Okay, might take some wiggling to get it loose, not too bad. Now just gently setting it inside so you don't damage the radiator. There's not enough room to pour it out yet. Set the nuts to the side. Take off the upper radiator hose or get it out of the way. On these 77 and up cars, the fan shroud actually mounts the radiator, holds the radiator on top. It's just plastic. It wouldn't do very good in a derby anyways. It's 2 pieces. There's a piece down here, so I could separate the top. And once we get all this done, I'll probably show you afterwards, maybe towards when we start putting it back together, how I'm going to mount the radiator. But for now, yeah, just toss this. I know you're probably thinking, or yes, shrouds are more efficient, but in a derby, they just do more damage. They'll do more damage to the fan, and they tend to get in areas you don't want them. So it's better just to run without it. You can make one out of cardboard if you want, but I've had the same problem with cardboard fan shrouds, just causing more damage than good. since the rest of the shroud is broke, we can just pull it right up. Now you can lift the fan out of there. And you should be able to just lift up the radiator a little bit. And give a good yank on that. Or maybe not. Some of these are clipped in. And this one's probably bolted in at the bottom. Okay. Some of the shrouds are just bolted, clipped in at the bottom. This one happens to be bolted. Usually there's one on each side. Okay. You will have to lift the radiator up a little bit since the lower portion of this shroud also contains, oops, dropped it, also contains the lower radiator mount. And it's a tight squeeze. Most of the time, you just pull the whole radiator out with it. I ain't got time for that. Okay, now you can get a better look inside there. I'm going to go over a few things here. Camera disconnected. But there you can get a shot of the water pump and how crusty it is. Actually, it's the perfect time to inspect the radiator. And this radiator doesn't even have bent fins or nothing. You don't have the white calcium deposits where it's been leaking. So it's in good shape. And a few things you can see here that will need to be removed. Right there is the sway bar, which you don't need in a derby car, which, as you can tell, as soon as this frame starts building, is going to go right into your pulleys. Second thing you can't really see, but it's right there, is a little frame horn that sticks out on all GM cars. This you'll have to take off with a cutting torch, or you'd have to, if you used a grinder in that, you'd literally have to take the motor out to do that. But those will have to be removed. That will interfere with your steering linkage once the frame starts bending. A lot of people I see keep these in there, or they go out and buy one and they fill them with antifreeze, which antifreeze is not a good thing to run a derby car. It feels like napalm when it hits you because it sticks to you when it's boiling hot in a derby. I do have a solution if you do want to run something. Something I've been doing that I think actually works. You notice the condenser, you leave that in there. It's radiator protection, but another second thing I do is you take this hose off here, you run it, keep on your AC lines like this one here that's got a nice coil in it, and it's about the right size, and you hook this hose to your AC condenser. And then you take this one up here, you spin it up and you use a small funnel, and you can actually fill it with water, so you'll have be just like having that. It'll hold almost the same amount of water. Actually, it holds quite a bit, surprisingly. But yeah, basically that's what I do. It gives you a little bit of a reservoir of extra water that it can suck back in, but also if your car does get really hot and starts bypassing here and steaming, if it goes through the condenser first, by the time it comes out this side here, it's usually cooler, so you don't have hot steam spraying at you. Either ways it works. And now we can get in here and look. You can see back there, all I have to buy is a plug to plug the intake. But here, and I can show you on the new water pump, the hose directly connects to it. And I'll show you what I've already found for that. The water pump here, the new one I bought, these are a factory GM item. I don't know exactly what they were used for. You can get these at AutoZone too, but they're not as high quality as these are. Super heavy duty. When GM got rid of them, I got all of them I could get. So basically all you're going to do is put that on there. A nice brand new hose clamp. And that'll block that off, and you don't have to worry about it bypassing the water pump and going into the intake instead. It'll work more efficiently for Derby. And the next few things I'm going to be working on after the water pump, because you should see now I can get to the water pump perfectly fine. I'll have to undo all these belts, but I'll be taking the air compressor off at the same time. Do not have to remove the belt on the power steering pump, though at one point I am, because that thing is rotten and I ain't going to risk using that. And the second thing I was going to show you here, this bracket here, if you want, could be cut, since you're not going to be using AC, and so you can keep an alternator. But this one down here that holds the bottom part of the alternator, that's also part of the AC bracket, cannot be removed, because that's all it's holding the bottom of the alternator in. You could whack this off if you wanted to, which I might if it didn't. Looks like it might interfere anything. The battery's still up here, so I could start and drive it. The next thing is this car has plastic fender wells. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't swap them out to anything else, because we're not allowed to weld nothing. And I'm sure somebody will say that they do some structure, but I believe on these 80s cars they don't do anything. And heck, on some of the 70s cars, that metal is not ever thick enough to do squat. I mean, you could weld it to the frame and that, but it ain't gonna do nothing. Most of the time, what happens is it ends up getting in your fan belts or taking out a radiator hose. So I usually cut the front of them out around the radiator, or like in this car, since they're plastic, I'll just remove them completely, which will make it easier when I go to chain this around here. I'll be able to get farther down instead of just way up here. I'll be able to find there's a rib right here, so I'll be able to go on this side of that structural rib, so the chain will be less likely to rip through. And that's about it for now. Gives you an idea of what you're going to find under here and a good starting point. I notice he's got the power steering line on backwards. I might have to fix that. So I don't know if it get damaged sitting that way, or we'll work on that too. Also, now you can see, even though it's cruddy, I can also get to the fuel pump a lot easier than before, and I don't want to crawl around on the dirty ground. There you go. Like I said, next to come off, power AC compressor, belts, and I'll turn to that. And then once the water pump and fuel pump are put in, then we'll start going over stripping the inside of the car, what to do with tranny lines for a stock Derby, and stuff like that. And then we'll also get into wiring this thing. Until then, see ya.